The door creaked open like a confession I wasn't ready to hear, and there she was, my stepdaughter Anastasia, perched on the edge of her unmade bed in our rented villa overlooking the Andalusian hills, a crumpled letter trembling in her fist. Her eyes, those wide, stormy brown pools that had always mirrored her father's quiet intensity, locked onto mine with a ferocity that pinned me in place. "Why didn't you tell me?" she whispered, her voice cracking like thunder over the Sierra Nevada, the words slicing through the humid Spanish air as if they'd been waiting years to escape. I froze in the doorway, the scent of olive groves and sea salt clinging to my skin from my afternoon walk through the winding streets of Ronda. It had been 6 months since we'd fled the gray sprawl of Seattle for this sun-baked corner of Spain, 6 months since the accident that stole Marco, Anastasia's father and my husband of 15 years, from us in a heartbeat on I-5. We'd come here chasing ghosts, or maybe just a fresh start, but the past had a way of following, especially when it was inked on yellowed paper. The letter, she must have found it tucked in the lining of my old leather suitcase, the one I'd sworn to burn before we left America. "Anastasia," I managed, my throat tightening around the name I'd whispered in lullabies and scoldings alike. She was 20 now, all sharp angles and unspoken fire, her long black hair spilling like ink over the faded band tee she'd worn since high school. I'd raised her from the gangly 12-year-old who'd called me Andy, with wary affection, through the slammed doors of teenage rebellion, to this woman who looked at me now like I'd betrayed her with my silence. The letter was from Elena, my Elena, from a lifetime ago, before Marco, before motherhood, before the closet I'd nailed shut with vows and white lies. She unfolded it slowly, deliberately, as if daring me to deny it. "My dearest Andrea," she read aloud, her voice steadying into something accusatory, "the nights without you are endless canyons. Come back to me in Barcelona, we'll build the life we dreamed under the stars." Who is she, Andrea? Who the hell is Elena? The paper fluttered to the floor like a fallen leaf, and in that moment, the room, the whitewashed walls adorned with cheap prints of flamenco dancers, the wrought iron bed frame groaning under the weight of her grief, closed in around us. I'd hidden that letter like a scar, a remnant of the summer I spent in Spain at 25, falling into a love so fierce it nearly drowned me. Elena, with her laugh like breaking waves and hands that mapped my body like uncharted coasts. We'd parted with promises we'd never keep, and I'd buried it all when I met Marco at a coffee shop in Pike Place, his easy smile a lifeline to normalcy. I sank onto the chair by her vanity, the one cluttered with half-used tubes of mascara and dog-eared paperbacks by authors who'd fled their own demons to Europe. "It's not what you think," I lied, the words tasting like ash. But it was exactly what she thought, and deeper still. I'd been a lesbian long before I knew the word fit, long before the shame of small-town Washington convinced me love like that was a luxury I couldn't afford. Marco had been my compromise, my safety net, kind, steady, the father Anastasia deserved. But in the quiet hours after his death, when the fog of loss lifted just enough to let regret seep in, I'd wondered if I'd cheated us all. Anastasia stood, her bare feet padding across the terracotta tiles, stopping inches from me. Up close, I could see the faint freckles across her nose, the ones she'd inherited from her Italian mother, gone too soon to cancer when Anastasia was 5. I'd stepped in then, not as a replacement, but as a bridge, Andrea, the American artist with paint under her nails and a laugh that could coax smiles from storms. "Not what I think." "Then explain it." "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you lied to Dad." "To me. We came here to escape, to heal, and you're carrying around some secret romance like it's nothing." Her chest heaved, and for a split second, I saw the child in her, the one who'd clung to my skirts during thunderstorms, begging for stories of far-off places. I reached for her hand, but she pulled back, not in anger, but in something rawer, confusion, maybe, or the dawning horror of seeing your parents' humanity laid bare. "It was before him, sweetheart. Before us. Elena and I, we were young. It ended because life got in the way. I chose your father because he made me believe in family, in something solid." The half-truths piled up like stones in my chest. Truth was, I'd chosen Marco because Elena's world felt too wild, too unmoored for the life I craved. But in choosing safety, I'd erased a piece of myself, and now it stared back at me through Anastasia's eyes. She turned away, shoulders slumping, and crossed to the window where the late afternoon sun painted the cliffs in gold. Ronda's Puente Nuevo arched in the distance, a stone testament to bridges built and broken. I found it while unpacking your stuff for the move. Thought it was junk mail at first, but then. God, Andrea, it's poetic. Like something out of those books I read. Her voice softened, laced with an ache that mirrored my own. Anastasia had always been the dreamer, sketching in notebooks filled with impossible cities and lovers who defied gravity. In Seattle, she'd hidden her sketches under her bed, much like I'd hidden my letters. Now, in this foreign land where the air hummed with guitar strings and the whisper of secrets, those walls were crumbling. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, the only sound the distant toll of church bells calling the faithful to vespers. Finally, she spoke again, her back still to me. Does it still hurt? Loving someone you can't have? The question hung between us, fragile as spun glass. I thought of Elena's face, high cheekbones, dark curls framing eyes like midnight seas, and the way her touch had felt like coming home. Every day, I admitted, the words slipping out unbidden. But pain like that. It shapes you. Makes you braver, maybe. Anastasia turned then, and in her gaze, I saw not judgment, but a flicker of recognition. I know what you mean, she murmured, sinking back onto the bed. There's this girl at the cafe where I work. Sophia. She's everything. But I'm scared. What if it's like your story? What if it ends before it begins? My heart stuttered. Sophia, the barista with the infectious grin and tattoos snaking up her arms like vines. I'd noticed how Anastasia's eyes lingered during our morning cortados, how her cheeks flushed when Sophia brushed her hand passing the sugar. In that moment, the villa felt less like a refuge and more like a confessional, the Spanish sun our reluctant witness. I'd brought us here to mend, to let the rhythm of siestas and tapas heal the jagged edges of loss. But secrets, once unearthed, demanded air. As the light faded, casting long shadows across the room, I realized this was just the beginning, the unexpected act that would unravel us both, thread by thread, until we wove something new from the remnants. The days that followed blurred into a tentative rhythm, laced with unspoken questions. Mornings, we'd wander the mercado in Ronda's old town, haggling over figs and manchego cheese, our laughter a fragile bridge over the chasm her discovery had carved. Anastasia threw herself into her job at Café del Puente, slinging espressos to tourists with a grace that turned heads, especially Sophia's. I'd watch from my easel on the terrace, charcoal sketching the curve of the gorge, but my eyes drifting to the way Anastasia tucked a stray hair behind her ear, mirroring the nervous habit I'd passed down. One evening, as the sky bruised purple over the Serrania, Anastasia burst through the villa door, her face alight with a joy I hadn't seen since before the funeral. Andrea. Sophia asked me to the feria next week. The festival, dancing, lights, all of it. She spun in the entryway, her skirt flaring like a matador's cape, and I couldn't help but smile, even as a pang twisted in my gut. It was pride, yes, but threaded with envy, not for Sophia, but for the unscarred boldness of youth. That's incredible, Anna, I said, pulling her into a hug that lingered a beat too long. She smelled of coffee grounds and jasmine oil, the same scent that haunted my dreams of Elena. Just be you. That's enough. She pulled back, searching my face. Like you were with her. The question was gentle now, no longer a weapon. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. Trying to be again. For both of us. But Spain, with its Sirocco winds and hidden courtyards, had other plans. A week later, as Anastasia prepared for the feria, ironing her flamenco dress with meticulous care, I received an email that upended everything. Subject: Old flames in new places. It was from Elena. Heard you're in Ronda. Barcelona's only a train ride away. Coffee? For old time's sake. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, heart pounding like a drum in a gypsy cave. How had she found me? Mutual friends from the art circuit, no doubt. The pull was magnetic, a tide dragging me back to depths I'd long avoided. I deleted it without replying, but the damage was done. That night, as fireworks cracked over the fiesta below, Anastasia returned flushed and glowing, her lips stained with sangria. It was magic, she breathed, collapsing onto the couch. Sophia. She kissed me under the lanterns. Her eyes sparkled, and I forced a cheer, toasting with imaginary glasses. But in the quiet after, as she drifted to sleep, I slipped out to the balcony, staring at the stars that had witnessed Elena's promises. The betrayal wasn't hers, it was mine, for wanting what I couldn't reclaim. The feria came and went in a whirlwind of color and chaos, leaving Anastasia transformed. She moved through our days with a lightness that chased away the villa's lingering shadows, her phone buzzing with texts from Sophia that elicited giggles over breakfast. Look at this one, she'd say, shoving the screen under my nose, a selfie of them cheek to cheek amid cotton candy clouds, Sophia's arms slung possessively around her waist. I'd nod, sketching idly, but inside, a storm brewed. Not jealousy, exactly. Anastasia's happiness was a balm to the wounds Marco's death had left, but a mirror to my own stagnation. At 42, with lines etching my eyes like forgotten rivers, I wondered if reinvention was a privilege reserved for the young. Ronda suited us, in its split-soul way, the old Moorish town clinging to cliffs like a secret, the new town sprawling modern and unapologetic below. We'd leased the villa on a whim, drawn by Marco's faded postcards from a honeymoon he'd never taken me on. Spain will fix us, he'd joked in those last months, his laugh hollow against the cancer's advance. No, wait, the accident, not cancer. My mind played tricks now, blending griefs. The crash on the interstate had been swift, merciless, one rainy night, and he was gone, leaving me to navigate widowhood with a stepdaughter who saw me as both savior and stranger. Anastasia dove deeper into Sophia's world, joining late-night tapas crawls and impromptu guitar sessions in hidden bodegas. I'd tag along sometimes, nursing a tinto de verano while they danced, bodies swaying to the pulse of Belarius. Sophia was a force, 23, with sun-kissed skin and a laugh that echoed off stone walls, her family roots tangled in the gypsy caravans that still roamed Andalusia's fringes. She worked the cafe by day, spun fire poi by night, her energy a spark to Anastasia's kindling. Watching them, I felt the stirrings of old longings, not for Sophia, but for the reckless abandon Elena and I had shared in Barcelona's Gothic quarter, stealing kisses in shadowed alleys. One humid afternoon, as thunderheads gathered over the gorge, I found myself alone in the villa, the silence amplifying Elena's email like a drumbeat. I reopened it, fingers tracing the words on the screen. I've thought of you every feria season. Life's too short for what-ifs. Attached was a photo, Elena at 45, silver threading her dark curls, standing on a Barcelona balcony with the Sagrada Familia piercing the sky behind her. She looked alive, unbowed, her smile a challenge. Against my better judgment, I replied, Ronda, not Barcelona. But yes. Coffee sounds like closure. The meeting was set for a neutral ground, a cafe in Antequera, midway between our worlds. I told Anastasia I was scouting art supplies, a lie that slipped out too easily. She was too wrapped in Sophia to question it, waving me off with a distracted, be safe on the trains. The journey blurred past olive orchards and white villages, my reflection in the window a ghost of the woman who'd once chased sunsets without fear. Elena was waiting at a corner table, her presence magnetic as ever. She rose to hug me, her embrace warm and lingering, scented with bergamot and memory. Andrea. God, you haven't changed. Lies, of course, we both had, etched by time's indifferent hand. Over cortados, the years unraveled, her gallery in the Bourne district, failed marriages to men she'd convinced herself she loved, a daughter now studying in Madrid. I settled, she confessed, stirring her cup. Like you did. But Marco. I'm sorry. He sounded like the good ones do. We talked for hours, the conversation a river carving through dams. She asked about Anastasia, and I shared stories, the girl's sketches, her budding romance, omitting the letter, the discovery. She's finding her way, I said. With a girl named Sophia. It's beautiful to watch. Elena's eyes softened. Like we were. You deserve that too, Andy. Not just watching from the sidelines. The suggestion hung, unspoken but electric. As we parted with a cheek kiss that brushed too close to lips, she slipped a card into my hand, her number, scrawled with, "For when you're ready." The train back to Rhonda rocked me into introspection, the card burning in my pocket like contraband. Betrayal? No, this was temptation, a crack in the facade I'd built for Anastasia's sake. Home was alive with music when I returned, Anastasia and Sophia in the kitchen, hips swaying to a playlist of Rosalia tracks, laughter bubbling over sizzling patatas bravas. Mom's back. Anastasia called, pulling me into their orbit. Sophia's gaze lingered a fraction too long, appraising, and I flushed, blaming the wine. Dinner stretched into the night, stories flowing like Rio, Sophia recounting a near miss with a bowl during Las Pamplonas Encierro, Anastasia teasing her about her reckless gypsy blood. I contributed sketches from my day, deflecting questions with humor, but Elena's words echoed, "You deserve that too." Later, as Sophia left with a stolen kiss that left Anastasia dazed, my stepdaughter turned to me, eyes gleaming. "Isn't she amazing? I think I'm falling." Her vulnerability cracked me open. "She is," I agreed, pulling her close. "But promise me, guard your heart. Love like that can betray you when you least expect." She nodded against my shoulder, oblivious to the hypocrisy in my voice. The betrayal came subtly at first, like mist off the Mediterranean. A week later, Anastasia confided over morning yogurts that Sophia had been distant, canceling plans with vague excuses about family obligations. "Maybe it's nothing," she said, but doubt shadowed her face. I encouraged patience, even as my own phone lit with Elena's texts, playful at first, then probing, "Tell me about this life in Rhonda. Or better, show me." I met Elena again, this time in a secluded taberna near the coast, where the sea crashed against cliffs like unresolved arguments. Our conversation deepened, hands brushing over shared plates of gambas al ajillo, the air thick with possibility. "I've missed this," Elena murmured, her fingers tracing mine. "The real you." I pulled away, guilt gnawing. I have a daughter to think of. A life. But the pull was inexorable. Back in Rhonda, I noticed Sophia's shifts at the cafe growing erratic, her smiles for Anastasia strained. One evening, as I sketched in the plaza, I saw her, Sophia, locked in animated conversation with a woman whose profile stopped my breath. Elena. They parted with a familiar hug, Sophia's hand lingering on Elena's arm. Coincidence? Rationally, yes. Art worlds overlapped, gypsy trails crisscrossed Spain. But my artist's eye saw patterns where none might exist. That night, confrontation brewed. Anastasia returned from a solo walk, tears streaking her face. Sophia broke it off. Said she needs space, that it's complicated. She collapsed into my arms, sobs racking her slender frame. I held her, murmuring comforts, but rage simmered beneath. The next day, I cornered Sophia at the cafe during a lull. What happened? She deserves better than ghosting. Sophia's eyes, usually sparkling, dulled. It's not like that, Andrea. Family stuff, my abuela's sick. And There's someone else. From before. Her voice faltered, and she looked away. Someone who gets the hidden parts, you know. I left without another word, the pieces slotting into a cruel mosaic. Elena. It had to be. A quick search on my phone confirmed it. Elena's gallery had featured Sophia's fire performances last summer. Old flames igniting anew, at the expense of my daughter's fragile heart. Betrayal, layered and vicious, Elena's, for pursuing without regard, Sophia's, for the duplicity, and mine, for opening the door to this chaos. Storm clouds gathered as I raced home, the wind whipping through the gorge like a warning. Anastasia was in the garden, pruning the bougainvillea with furious snips, petals scattering like confetti from a ruined party. "Anna," I called, voice breaking. "We need to talk." She looked up, shears poised mid-cut, her face a mask of guarded pain. The garden, our sanctuary of terracotta pots and wild rosemary, felt suddenly claustrophobic under the gathering dusk. "What now?" Anastasia asked, wiping dirt-streaked hands on her jeans. "More secrets. Another letter I shouldn't have found." I knelt beside her, the earth cool and unyielding beneath my knees. "It's about Sophia. And Elena." The names dropped like stones into still water, rippling outward. I told her everything, the email, the meetings, the damning sighting in the plaza. Omitted nothing, not the brush of Elena's hand, not the envy that had colored my silences. Anastasia listened, expression shifting from shock to a slow-burning fury that mirrored the lightning flickering over the Sierra. "You knew?" she whispered, voice rising with the wind. "You let me fall for her, knowing she was tangled up with your ex." The shears clattered to the ground, and she stood, backing away as if my touch might contaminate. "This is betrayal, Andrea. Not just hers, yours. You brought us here to heal, but you're still chasing ghosts, dragging me into your mess." Rain began to fall in fat, reluctant drops, turning the garden to mud. I rose, reaching for her, but she shrugged me off. "I thought we were building something real. Sisters, almost. But it's all smoke. Like Dad, gone because we couldn't hold on." The comparison stung, unjust but piercing. Marco's absence loomed, a specter in every argument, every unspoken, "if only." We retreated inside as the storm broke, thunder rumbling like the gods' disapproval. The villa's kitchen became our battlefield, words flying sharper than any blade. "I was trying to protect you," I shouted over the roar of rain on tiles. "From the hurt I know too well." Elena left me shattered, Sophia would have done the same. Anastasia slammed a cabinet, glasses rattling. "By meddling. By seeing her behind my back. You're no better than her, Andrea. Hiding, lying, picking at old wounds instead of letting them scar." Her words landed like blows, each one excavating the truths I'd buried. She was right, I'd romanticized my past, let Elena's siren call erode the foundations I'd laid with Marco, with her. In seeking my own resurrection, I'd cracked hers. The argument crested in sobs, Anastasia sliding to the floor, knees to chest. I loved her. Or thought I did. And now? What? Back to being the broken girl from Seattle. I joined her there, the linoleum cold against my palms. "You're not broken, Anna. You're the strongest person I know. This pain. It's proof you're alive, feeling deeply. That's not weakness, it's your power." Hours passed in halting truce, the storm easing to a patter. We talked then, really talked, about Marco's quiet affections, the way he'd hum Sinatra in the shower, about Elena's wild heart, which had both ignited and incinerated mine, about Sophia, whose betrayal was as much victimhood as villainy, caught in passions older than our fragile bonds. "Maybe she was using me to get to you," Anastasia mused, voice hoarse. "Or Elena. God, it's all so tangled." I shook my head. No. You were real to her. To anyone with eyes. But love. It doesn't always stay tidy. Dawn crept in, painting the room in soft grays, and in that fragile light, Anastasia leaned her head on my shoulder. Teach me how to let go. Like you did with Dad. The request humbled me. Over the following weeks, we forged a new ritual, mornings at the gorge's edge, hurling pebbles into the abyss while voicing regrets, for the lies, I'd say, for trusting too fast, she'd counter. Afternoons, we'd hike the senderos, wild thyme crunching underfoot, sharing stories of desires unspoken. Anastasia confessed her sketches of Sophia, now burned in a cathartic bonfire. I shared Elena's card, torn and scattered to the winds. Elena reached out once more, a voicemail laced with apology. I didn't know about the girl. Sophia mentioned a friend in Rhonda, never dreamed. Forgive me. I deleted it without response, blocking the number. Closure, I'd learned, wasn't in words, but in walking away. Sophia, too, faded, a polite nod at the cafe, no more. Rumors swirled of her leaving for Granada, chasing fire festivals and fresh starts. Climax came unbidden, on a crisp autumn day when the leaves turned gold along the Guadalhorce. Anastasia had entered a local art fair, her canvases bold strokes of emotion, lovers entwined in cliffside embraces, betrayals rendered in shattered blues. I wandered the stalls, proud and anonymous, until I spotted Elena amid the crowd, her eyes on Anastasia's work. She turned, saw me, and approached with tentative grace. Andrea. Her pieces. They're yours, aren't they? The pain, the fire. I nodded, throat tight. Ours, maybe. But she's her own now. We stood in awkward silence, the fair's bustle a buffer. I came to see, Elena said softly. To say goodbye properly. No what-ifs this time. Relief washed over me, mingled with sorrow. Goodbye, then. Take care of yourself. We parted with a nod, no hugs, no lingering, a clean severance. As she vanished into the throng, I found Anastasia at her booth, surrounded by admirers. Sold 3, she crowed, pulling me into a whirl. Her joy was unshadowed, a testament to resilience. In the months that followed, Rhonda wove us tighter. Anastasia's art bloomed, galleries in Malaga calling. I picked up my brushes again, landscapes infused with the hues of healing. We hosted Thanksgivings with paella instead of turkey, inviting neighbors whose stories enriched our own, widows, expats, dreamers all. One evening, as snow dusted the Sierra, a rare Andalusian gift, Anastasia and I sat by the fire, mulled wine steaming between us. Thank you, she said suddenly, squeezing my hand. For the mess. For showing me love's not perfect, but it's worth the scars. I smiled, tears pricking. And thank you for dragging me into the light. You're my brave girl, Anna. Always were. Outside, the world spun on, bridges arching over gorges, secrets blooming into truths. We'd come to Spain chasing escape, but found instead a home in the ruins. Betrayal had cracked us open, but from those fissures grew something human, enduring, not flawless romance, but a love fierce and familial, laced with the quiet drama of second chances. In the end, it wasn't happily ever after, nor tragedy's final curtain, just life, in all its tender, tumultuous glory.